Stop that.
Identify yourself.
I am IG-11. I am this child's nurse droid, and require that you remind him to me immediately.
A nurse droid? I thought it was a hunter. Aren't IGs usually hunters? Yeah, well, evidently this one's a nurse. I'm sorry, nurse, but you're gonna have to get out of here.
Are you refusing my request?
No. I'm telling you to get out of here.
That was unpleasant. I'm sorry you had to see that.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads! Mayvar Tigar. Welcome to the 10th action-packed episode of Mando Vision. Nargai Tom. Thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast where we are focused, hyper-focused, laser-guided vision on Season 1 of The Mandalorian. This is Chapter 8 today. We're talking about The Reckoning. We are going back in to the original reviews that I dropped for The Mandalorian during Season 1 on the other podcast that I do, on the Tomcast Popcast. These are again, like I said, the initial reviews from the day of the release of each individual chapter. So it was fun for me to go back and explore this last chapter because, I mean, I remember just how keyed up I was after watching this episode. That last shot, and, you know, full spoilers, if you haven't watched the show, we're going to spoil the hell out of it right now and in the review that I'm going to drop for you in just a few minutes. But I was so keyed up as Moff Gideon climbs out of the wreckage of his TIE fighter with the Darksaber in hand. It was one of those moments where you just, you know, sometimes those things happen. It was kind of like the closest equivalent I can think of for people who are maybe not understanding where I'm coming from, but it was kind of like that moment when like the Avengers get together for the first time and you're just like, wow, I can't believe I've ever seen this. And it's one of those moments where for Star Wars, where all these different things that I didn't know if and when they would connect and how they would connect, especially coming from an animated series into a live action series, it makes no difference. This is the show that brings everything together. This is the chapter of The Mandalorian that brings the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels and everything and reinforces the idea of like, this is one galaxy and everything in it is important. So pay damn attention to it. So seeing that moment of Gideon with the Darksaber just gets me pumped up, got me so pumped up. Listening back to my review, I can hear that energy in my voice. It's just how excited I am. And I think that's one of the strongest parts of my initial review for this chapter is the volume of information I have to impart about the history of the Darksaber, because I think for a lot of fans, maybe you weren't plugged into the Clone Wars, maybe you weren't watching it because it was just a cartoon and it was on Cartoon Network, and you know, it was one of those things that it was kind of below your radar initially. So I was able to, again, this is something I'm very proud of, I was able to kind of put that knowledge out there for anyone listening on the podcast of, here's what you need to know about this, and this is why it's important to The Mandalorian going forward. And not just to our Mandalorian Din Djarin, but to all the Mandalorians, all the Mandalorian characters that are on this show, to the Mandalorians as a people. And again, that's the part of the show I was really, really proud of. I thought I did a lot of really good information, imparting information to everyone. Some of the There's a little bit, though, to be critical of, and I think a lot of it has to do with, like I said, I was really amped up. I was on some kind of adrenaline rush doing that initial review, because there was a few things I kind of glossed over, and maybe not glossed over, but I sort of phrased oddly, and looking back without the proper context, they might seem a little confusing. You know, in particular when I refer to Boba Fett as a particular nemesis for Din Djarin moving forward. I think it sort of sounds like I'm trying to imply that Boba Fett is a Mandalorian. Again, we've detailed that, we chronicled that, how he's not. But I think it's sort of, again, the way I phrase it in this review, and you'll hear it. I think you'll hear it pretty clearly that I sort of sound like I'm implying that he and Din Djarin are of the same sort of thing, are of the same people, and they're not. But what needs to be mentioned is that we don't know what they're going to do with Boba Fett. We don't really know how they're going to handle that, and we don't really know what sort of relationship they're going to give Boba Fett to the Mandalorians of this show, of this period. So that's what remains to be seen. Again, Boba Fett's reference to Din Djarin is more of an adversarial thing, but not necessarily as two Mandalorians, just as a Mandalorian and Boba Fett, the guy pretending to be a Mandalorian. So I wanted to put a little bit more clarity into that. The other thing that I was like, I think I've read that room a little bit wrong, or perhaps I was just really excited about the possibility of diving into something that has been a big Star Wars mystery for so long, is in the scene where Din and Cara and Greef are with Baby Yoda. IG-11 is there, and they're with the Armorer, and she's talking about the history, giving us little clues, little bits of history between the Mandalorians and the Jedi. And she charges the Mandalorian with the mission of reuniting the child with its people, with its kind. And I think I got really excited about the possibility of exploring Yoda's species and Yoda's people. When I think, obviously in hindsight, I just sort of got really focused on that, and instead of realizing that, like, she's talking about Jedi. She's talking about the Jedi. Yoda's people will probably still remain some kind of great Star Wars mystery for all time, and I have no problem with that at all. It makes a certain amount of sense that she is actually referring to the Jedi. You guys probably were all ahead of me on that one. Like I said, I think I was just amped up, and I got really locked in on this idea of exploring Yoda's species. So I'm going to put that out on Front Street right now. I got laser focused on the idea instead of looking at the obvious answer, which was Jedi, which we'll talk about more later. I also swung and missed on the. I don't know why on the initial review I couldn't recognize that the Armorer had forged a Mudhorn sigil for our mighty Mando, but she did. And it was a Mudhorn, and it was pretty obvious on subsequent viewings. But by that point, I had released the episode, so I wasn't going to go back in. But that's been the great part about revisiting these reviews. 6, 7, 8 months later, is that I can listen back to them and see where my enthusiasm led me down a street that maybe wasn't the best street to go down with no flashlights. So that's been really, really exciting. So I'm gonna play the review for you now. I want you to embrace everything that's in there. Lots of good stuff. Again, we're gonna open up. The review opens up with a clip from Star Wars Rebels that talks about the Darksaber and its role, its history with the Mandalorians and how that intersects with the Jedi. And then we'll come back into the show, and you'll hear more good stuff and a little bit of what's to come later this week. Now that we have finally finished re-reviewing season 1, because there's a lot ahead, not to look forward to, and that's something that's we're gonna look forward to it extremely soon. Extremely soon. That's all I'm gonna say about that for now. So let me plug in that review, and I'll talk to everybody on the other side. So get ready, strap on your buckets, folks. We are in Chapter 8, The Reckoning.
You wanted to speak with me?
I've got something to show you.
What's this about? A lightsaber?
Not just any lightsaber.
It can't be.
So you recognize it?
That I do. It is the Darksaber, a symbol for the leader of House Vizsla, and later the group known as Death Watch.
I didn't know Mandalorians developed a type of lightsaber.
We didn't. This was one of a kind. Legend tells that it was created over 1,000 years ago by Tar Vizsla, the first Mandalorian ever inducted into the Jedi Order. After his passing, the Jedi kept the saber in their temple. That was until members of House Vizsla snuck in and liberated it. They used the saber to unify the people and strike down those who would oppose them. At one time, they ruled all of Mandalore wielding this blade. This saber is an important symbol to that house and respected by the other clans. I imagine Sabine was excited to recover it.
You wouldn't know it. After we got back from Dathomir, she gave it to me for safekeeping and hasn't brought it up since.
She doesn't want the responsibility. Kanan, if Sabine can wield this saber, she can reunite one of the most powerful houses in all of Mandalore.
You're talking about raising an army.
With Sabine leading it.
Oh, we have to get into it today, Popheads. The Darksaber is back in play, and what you just heard was a little bit of the Darksaber's history. But we have so much more to talk about. Hey, hello, Popheads. Welcome to issue 67 of 3BZ Presents, the Tomcast Popcast, also known as Popcast, and I am your host with the most. My name is Tom. Please follow the show on social media, at Tomcast_Popcast on Twitter, at the Tomcast_Popcast on Instagram. You can email us at tomcastpopcast@gmail.com. And you can head on over to join Pophead Nation at patreon.com/TomcastPopcast. Thank you so much to my current Patreons, the Aspen Hill Chody, the Squid Master General Brian Broussard, and our newest Patreon, the Batman of Bay Park, Jeff Nail, also the co-host on the Ringing Ear podcast. So thank you guys so much for being Patreons. I hope you've had a chance to listen to this month's Patreon-only exclusive episode for a commentary track for Star Wars The Force Awakens in order to help whet your appetite for The Rise of Skywalker, which that review episode is coming up shortly, and it is going to be full of all kinds of hotness, rage, and anger. These lead to the dark side, and that movie led me to the dark side. But Roger is going to be representing the light because he was a bigger fan than I, so spoilers on that. But we're going to have a nice little debate club, I think. So stay tuned for that. But today we're here to talk about the most important thing that happened in the history of the internet. Or at least the history of the internet for the day. Chapter 8 of The Mandalorian dropped today, this morning. The season finale of The Mandalorian. And oh boy, was it a doozy. And as you listen to that clip that opened the show, we're going to dive right into the big reveal. And now maybe as a casual viewer, you're not quite sure what I'm talking about, what the significance of all of that is. So what am I talking about? At the very end of The Mandalorian. And again, spoilers, man. We're talking about it. You guys watched it, okay? Spoilers. The very end of the series, of the season, of the shot. Moff Gideon cutting his way out of his TIE fighter with a black-bladed lightsaber. That is the Darksaber. And that is of supreme significance to the Mandalores. So that's why I dug up that clip for you guys. That's from Star Wars Rebels, and the Darksaber factors very heavily into the final season of that show. I've highly recommended it to you in the past. I highly recommend it to you now. If you'd like to see more of the Darksaber's history of it in action, you can go back into Star Wars: The Clone Wars animated series, where it plays a bit of a role as well. And I do believe it's been referenced once or twice on Star Wars Resistance. So make sure to make some time to watch those animated series. They're starting to connect some of the dots here. You know, obviously we don't know what the intentions are. We don't know much more than the fact that Moff Gideon has possession of the Darksaber. But as was alluded to in that sound clip, the Darksaber is this wonderful symbol for the Mandalores. It unites them, usually behind a leader. And obviously, as we see the Mandalorians in this episode, or in this series, they are a scattered people. So whoever can wield that Darksaber has a chance to bring the Mandalorians back together again as a force in the Star Wars galaxy, which would be pretty fucking cool because we haven't seen that just yet. But there's so much to get into. You know, the history of this one particular artifact is so much mythology for Star Wars. They mentioned Tar Vizsla as the first Mandalorian Jedi Knight. This is the one-of-a-kind weapon forged by Tar Vizsla to serve as his weapon as a member of the Jedi Knights. Now, what exactly... How is there a Jedi Knight, a Mandalorian? We've talked about the innate conflict between these two cultures, and so a lot of the mythology, a lot of the lore surrounding Tar Vizsla is that he was something of a attempt by the Jedi and by the Mandalorians to bridge their differences, to kind of bring them together in a way that hadn't before, because the Mandalorians and the Jedis in some of the mythology have a very complicated history with one another. And they are almost, yin and yang to each other in a lot of senses. So Tar Vizsla was something of an experiment to see if the Mandalorians and the Jedi could become closer through Tar Vizsla. Now, again, the mythology is a little dicey. We don't know a lot of details, because at some point Tar Vizsla becomes the Mandalore of the Mandalorians. He becomes like their leader. So is he a member of the Knights at the same time? Can he be the leader of a people and a Jedi Knight at the same time? Does he have to leave the Jedi Order? There's a lot of gaps to fill in here. But the big thing to keep note of is the last name. We've mentioned the Vizsla family. Clan Vizsla has been a significant part of the Mandalorians in the new canon, which is, again, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, and again, Resistance is part of the canon, but that's ahead of our time. So we don't need to pay attention to Resistance at the moment. Rebels, Clone Wars. That's our main background for Mandalore and now the Darksaber. Clan Vizsla in the Clone Wars tried to use the Darksaber to rally the Mandalorian warriors into resisting the peaceful ways of Duchess Satine. In Rebels, they bring the Sabine Wren with a W-R-E-N, attempts to use the Darksaber to reunite the clans against the Empire, and then eventually it's given to another member, and eventually Sabine gives it to Bo-Katan to become the leader of the Mandalorians in the resistance in attempting to resist the Empire. There's even a phase where you go back into, if you really get into Clone Wars, you'll see that at one point Darth Maul was a wielder of the Darksaber as well, as he took over rule of Mandalore, and he engaged in lightsaber fight with Darth Sidious using the Darksaber. But I didn't want to get too deep into that. Let's just kind of stick with the Mandalore portion of the Darksaber's history. Now, obviously, Bo-Katan at some point is either killed or removed by the Empire, because she loses this, and we know what happens with the Mandalorians. At some point, the Empire turns on the Mandalorians and eliminates them. This is part of Sabine Wren's story arc in Star Wars Rebels. But remember, Rebels takes place prior to A New Hope. So something's happened since that series ended that has the Mandalorians in this state now where they are. And we get some reference to that from Moff Gideon in this episode, where he refers to the Night of 1,000 Tears. We'll get there. We will get there. But remember, Vizsla. This plays a big part in things. And I'll say it right now. We'll get to it when it happens, but I'm going to say it right now. The Clan Vizsla sigil is what's on the shoulder pauldron of the Mandalorian who rescues young Din Djarin. Oh, that's right. We also got the name of our Mandalorian today. We no longer have to refer to him as Mando, even though I like referring to him as Mando, and I may still just do it for fun. But his name is Din Djarin. Orphaned when his parents were killed by a separatist battle droids, and then about to be killed himself when a squad of Mandalorians jetpacked into his village and fought off the separatist robots. And then an unnamed Mandalorian takes Din to safety. On his jetpack, no less. So that's pretty darn cool. But the shoulder sigil is that of Clan Vizsla. So Clan Vizsla playing a big part in this show. I'm a little surprised how much Vizsla's been all up and down the history of the Mandalores at this point, Especially considering, at one point, we talked about it on the Boba Fett episode. We were under the impression that Boba Fett was the main Mandalorian. Apparently, it's all about the Vizslas, baby. You got to be a Vizsla to get around in Mandalore. This is that odd section I was talking about Boba Fett. When I make that reference, I'm referring to old canon of Boba Fett, where he was a Mandalorian and became the Mandalore, the leader of the people at one point. Obviously, the Vizslas are new canon, hence why it was a little bit of a... Hence why I wanted to clarify that I misspoke a little bit there and kind of created a confusing statement. So, a little clarity right there for you guys. Boba Fett is a Mandalorian, old canon, Vizsla's new canon, real canon, current canon. I know there was some speculation initially on the internet that Boba Fett was going to be the character who would rescue Din, but clearly we are debunking that unless Boba Fett's part of Clan Vizsla and we just didn't even know it. I don't know. Who knows? There's a lot of room for them to play with, but let's assume that they are separate. I think it makes actually more sense if Fett and Vizsla are actually kind of rivals of each other, but that may be something they explore later because... And again, a little clarity. I mean this again, Boba Fett versus Vizsla in the sense that Vizsla would be upset that he's impersonating a Mandalorian by wearing the armor. That's what I'm getting at there. This season's wrapped up, and we don't know any more about the mysterious boots we saw back at the end of Chapter 6. Is that a new Boba Fett? Is Boba Fett now on the trail? Maybe it's another member of Clan Vizsla. Maybe there's more Mandalorian stuff going on. Maybe somebody's tracking the Darksaber. Who knows? There's a lot to get through in this. But let's get into... I think we're in a good spot. We've talked a lot about the Darksaber, but now we should get into the main part of the show. I mean, when we left, our heroes were in a bit of a pickle at the end of Chapter 7. And then, because that Jolly St. Nick motherfucker came in here, and Rise of Skywalker was coming out, we haven't had a chance to really, get a new chapter. We had to wait a little bit longer to get a new chapter of The Mandalorian. Can you believe that shit? It was a bummer. So the episode, let's just say it right off the bat. I think this episode's awesome. This may be the best episode yet. It was a lot of fun. It was action-packed and exciting. This episode is titled Redemption. It is written by Jon Favreau, and it is directed by everyone's favorite Marvel guy. Directed by everybody's favorite Marvel guy, Taika Waititi. Also, the actor who does the mocap suit for IG-11. Pretty cool, huh? So, his first effort directing anything in the Star Wars universe, and it just so happens to be possibly the best episode of The Mandalorian, at least of Season 1. So we pick up basically where we left off. The speeder bike's racing back towards the town in Navarro. They have Baby Yoda in their possession. Now they're going to hang back outside of the town and wait for the signal that it's all good to come in with Baby Yoda. And you may recognize the voices of these particular speeder bike troopers because, why not put like celebrities in the suit and have fun with that? It's Adam Pally in one suit and then Jason Sudeikis in the other suit. And they have a pretty little funny exchange back and forth about Gideon and what's like kind of like the day-to-day rigmarole of Stormtrooper life. And every time Baby Yoda makes a noise, though, they punch the little bag that he's in. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that we all wanted them to die for this. And that is not cool. You don't punch the little bag that Baby Yoda's in. So it's a pretty funny scene. There's a lot of funny hand gestures. Now listen, I'm going to say this right now, because we're going to get into this when we do the review of Rise of Skywalker. This kind of interaction between stormtroopers and between the soldiers of the Imperial Army makes sense. I will tell you why it doesn't make sense in the goddamn Rise of Skywalker in that episode. You don't get banter with those ones, okay? We'll talk about why later. Don't worry. All right. Anyways, so these speeder bike troopers are waiting outside of the town. The one wants to see Baby Yoda. Nobody knows what Baby Yoda is. Nobody's never seen anything like Yoda before. We've been there. Now, there's a pretty funny part, too, where the stormtroopers are trying to shoot a target, and they're terrible at it. Which, is very on brand. Very on brand for stormtroopers. And, it's funny, too, when you watch that scene, because it's not like they're close. They miss by a lot. But they're waiting outside the town, and what this allows to happen is what we expected to have happen. IG-11 has come to fulfill his programming and protect Baby Yoda. And it's funny because IG-11 announces himself as a nurse droid. But obviously, he's a very lethal nurse droid, and he wastes no time dispatching the 2 stormtroopers who deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell for punching Baby Yoda. And it's a great scene where after he's broken the one arm of one stormtrooper and he flips him around and flips the other one over, he grabs the other one by the helmet and just smashes him through a speeder bike, which is pretty rad. So then he picks up the sack with Baby Yoda, and then we get to see something super cool. We get to see IG-11 power up a speeder bike, and he's going to take off into town. I don't know if this is great work to protect the child by riding into the town where all the stormtroopers are at. Perhaps his programming says that the best way to protect the child is to kill all the people who would do him harm. That's when you get the title cue. There we are, we're in Chapter 8. Still called Redemption. And now we meet up with our heroes back at the bar. Moff Gideon issuing commands. This is where we get our scene where we find out that Gideon knows a lot. And this is where he drops the name of Din Djarin. He also knows Cara Dune's full name and her role in the Rebel Alliance. And we also find out that Greef Karga is a failed Imperial magistrate. Probably an Imperial magistrate. It's a little unclear. So the stormtroopers are setting up a lot of weapons. They're getting an E-Web blaster cannon. We're prepared to go. Our heroes are trying to figure out a way out of the bar before they get blasted to a million pieces. They want to get out through a sewer grate because the sewers are where the Mandalorian's enclave was held up in Navarro. They were living in the sewers. I don't think that was ever very clear before. At least if there was, they were definitely very fancy sewers compared to what we've seen before. If the Ninja Turtles would have loved to live in these sewers, very spacious, very, very spacious. Oh, I forgot to say too, when Moff Gideon is intimidating our heroes by showing all he knows about them, revealing their full names and everything like that, we also find out that Cara Dune is from Alderaan. So there's a nice little connection back. Apparently, part of the reason why she might be so agitated at the Empire is the death of Alderaan. So a nice little motivation for her. In the scene as well, as he's revealing the information, as he's telling us the name of the Mandalorian, Moff Gideon refers to the Siege of Mandalore. And this is when he mentions the ships that mowed down the Mandalorian recruits on the night of 1,000 Tears. This is when our heroes realize that this is Moff Gideon. At this point, they don't know who's out there. But this information tells Din who he is. And everyone knows that Moff Gideon, by reputation alone, is a badass. Cara even mentions that the rumors that he was executed for war crimes. So again, establishing the fact that Gideon is not someone to fuck around with. The one part I don't like about this scene is after Gideon delivers his threats and gives every appearance of having the upper hand, he then gives our heroes time to think about things, which obviously is time to get away. So if Gideon was such a badass, I really feel like he just should have done what he was going to do. But the prevailing theory is that because he didn't have the child yet, he didn't want to kill them yet. And I'll be honest, I love watching Giancarlo Esposito play this character, play Moff Gideon. He brings such a nice presence to the role. You know, I totally see this guy as a badass. I don't know about how you guys feel about it, but I love seeing him at it as this level of Imperial scumbag. You also get reference to the Mind Flayer as well, which you may remember from seeing in Star Wars Rogue One as a device they used on Bodhi to see if he was telling the truth. Cara is afraid that if she gets captured by Moff Gideon, they're going to hook her up to a Mind Flayer. And it's funny to see Greef's reaction to that. He says that those were not real, that it was just war propaganda. And as we know, since we've seen it, very, very real. The scene also provides us with a little bit more context. Again, when Din is telling Greef and Cara how he knows it's Gideon because of the fact that he hasn't heard the name spoken aloud since he was a child, we come out and get the fact that, yeah, our Mando is not born on Mandalorian, and this is where we find out that Mandalore, they kind of confirm what we've talked about in the show. Mandalore is not a race. And he says, this is interesting, the Mandalore uses this word. He says it's a creed, which is an interesting choice of words, but effectively conveys what we've all been talking about for this entire season. This is when you get the flashback. We get the full scene now of Din as a child when the Separatist army is attacking his village. Again, we know we're not on Mandalore, but we don't know where we are. So the scene plays out. Like I said, we've seen the snippets in previous episodes. You know, his parents, mother and father, both put him away in a little underground, like, I want to say pantry, but I know that's not the right word. But it's like a little shelter underneath the ground. And as it's opened up by a super battle droid, a Mandalorian, in full regalia, very Boba Fett-esque looking, comes to rescue Jin. He offers him his hand. He takes his hand. And that's when we see Mandalorians swooping out of the sky to attack the battle droids, to attack the Separatist forces. So, we don't know the context. We don't know if this planet's under protection of the Mandalores or how this works out necessarily, if they were hired by anyone. Perhaps the Republic hires them to deal with Separatist forces in one section. We don't know for sure. But it's a great scene. Again, these Mandalorians all have their jetpacks. They're all swooping in. They all have the blaster rifles similar to Boba Fett's design. And again, you see that emblem on the shoulder pauldron indicating this is Clan Vizsla doing this action. And the one who rescues Din takes off to get him to safety. And now this is how Din becomes the foundling. Again, we've sort of seen this before, but to see this is how it plays out, how the Mandalorian rescues him, is very, very interesting. He then talks about being raised in the fighting corps, treated as one of their own until he came of age, and then he was sworn into the creed. The only record of his family name was in the registers of Mandalore, and that Moff Gideon was an ISB officer during the Purge. Again, we're referencing the Purge. We've talked about this in episode 3. ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau. All right, so we know Gideon's kind of a badass because of that. The Imperial Security Bureau is something of Imperial. It's not like the CIA or the FBI necessarily, but it's sort of the Star Wars equivalent of all that. It's basically, there's intelligence gathering. There's all that stuff going on in there. So being in part of the Imperial Security Bureau is a little bit different than just being a standard Imperial officer. It's at this point now that our heroes reach back out on the comm to see if Kuiil was able to get away with the child. We get IG-11 responding. And he's tearing ass on that speeder bike. And he's coming right into the Navarre. And he's about to start killing the fuck out of some stormtroopers. Awesome action sequence right here. As on a speeder bike, IG-11 is blowing stormtroopers away at breakneck speeds. And he's doing his cool swivel moves. And Baby Yoda loves it. You get awesome Baby Yoda stuff in this episode. It's so good. And as the stormtroopers who are facing the bar, holding the Mandalorian and Cara Dune and everyone at bay, they hear the blaster fire. They hear what's coming for them. And this is when, again, it's just a wonderful action piece. And Taika Waititi directs the shit out of it. And they just blow everything to holy hell. And this gives our heroes a chance. It's also really cool the way IG-11 is able to swivel his body around so that the Baby Yoda is not in the line of fire here. Turns him around, and then he swivels the arms around. Such a cool feature with this robot. They do such a great job with this droid. It's fantastic. The action he's capable of doing and keeping Baby Yoda safe and protected at the same time. Hell of a nurse droid right there, folks. This is what you got to get to be your babysitter. This guy's a bad motherfucker. But again, this opens up the window for our heroes to get a chance to fight back. And they start mowing down stormtroopers from inside the bar. Din Djarin comes out of the bar, blasters firing. Greef follows behind him. Time to fight some death troopers. Great, again, awesome action sequence. And then Gideon comes and re-enters the fray here as Din Djarin picks up the E-Web repeating blaster cannon and starts mowing down the Imperial forces. Gideon gets a drop on him, and instead of shooting the Mandalorian with his blaster, he hits the power pack for the E-Web and blows Din Djarin straight to hell. Oh, so to speak. You can't kill the hero. Sorry. So Cara Dune rushes out. She brings the Mandalorian. They head back into the bar. They fall back into the bar. IG-11's with them. IG-11, being the cool droid that he is, has a cutting torch. They haven't been able to get in that sewer. It's been problematic cutting into that grate. So IG-11's got the torch. He's going to be able to do it. Gideon's going to send in an Imperial flamethrower trooper. Flame trooper? That probably sounds better. He's kind of a badass looking dude with the red all over his face. Looks a little bit reminiscent of the figures that we saw in the First Order, who have the flamethrowers. But I love the classic Stormtrooper design a lot more, so I like this guy better. And basically, our Mandalorian friend Din Djarin believes he's dying. He wants to be left behind, but Kar's not going to let him do that. But we see the blood coming out of his helmet. He took it bad when he got exploded. She keeps trying to take off his helmet to help him. Again, refusing to let the aid be rendered if it means taking off his helmet. So he wants Kar to take care of the child. He gives her the mythosaur rune, the necklace that he wears. And he wants her to take it, find the Mandalorians, and give that rune to them so they know that he sent her with the baby, and that they will protect the baby now after his death. The Imperial Flame Trooper shows up, and it's fire time, baby. He's going to burn that bar to the ground. Our hero's in trouble. IG-11 hasn't finished cutting yet, but the Mando's going to sacrifice himself. He wants to save Baby Yoda. He wants to save them. He knows he's dead. And here comes the Flame Trooper. Now, this was an interesting part here because I thought we may get another Force healing scene from Baby Yoda where he helps the Mandalorian recover. Baby Yoda seems to be waiting and for his moment to shine in this battle, and he's chosen this point right here as the Flame Trooper enters the building, flamethrower blazing, pointed right at him. They're all about to be torched. Baby Yoda, hands raised, and unleashes the Force to protect them all. Sends the flames right back into the trooper, blowing him up and sending him out, flinging him back out the door. Again, grief. Everyone looks on in disbelief at what they're seeing as that stormtrooper explodes. That's such a great fucking scene. And Baby Yoda, the effort again. He's a little pooped. Just pops right down the ground and falls over. He's a little tie-tie. All right, the grate's open. It's time to go. The Mando's still begging them to leave him. He's going to slow them down. He's in no condition. IG-11 scoops up Baby Yoda. IG-11 hands the baby to Cara Dune, urges her to protect the child. Grief heads down into the sewer, and Cara makes IG-11 promise to bring the Mandalorian with him. And IG-11 gives her word. Now, IG-11 enters the scene here with the Mandalorian in an attempt to render aid. He wants to give first aid to the Mandalorian, but the Mando won't let him take his helmet off. He says, another living person's not seen me without this helmet. And to which IG-11 responds, I'm not a living thing. And so he takes his helmet off. He's able to remove his helmet, and this is when we get our first glimpse of Din Djarin, of Pedro Pascal, as the Mandalorian. And so IG-11 renders first aid. He applies a Bacta spray to help promote the healing of the wound. Bacta is, for anyone unfamiliar, Bacta is like super medicine in a lot of senses for the Star Wars universe. If you remember in The Empire Strikes Back, the Bacta tank, after Luke's been attacked by the Wampa, that's the tank that Luke is floating in. That's Bacta. It promotes the healing of the body. So he gets that infusion of Bacta sprayed onto his wounds, and they head into the sewer together. But not before IG-11 makes a funny joke about the Mandalorian receiving damage to his central processing unit. It's funnier than I'm making it sound. But that's pretty much your only glimpse of Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian, because the helmet goes back on as they get back into the sewers here. Now they're trying to find the Mandalorian enclave. They're trying to get help from the Mandalorians. I'm a little surprised that Din believes the Mandalorians will still be here after the way things ended in Episode 3. And what we're going to find out as they finally make their way to the enclave is that there were repercussions for helping Din escape with Baby Yoda. And they find that out when they reach the enclave, and they find shattered Mandalorian battle armor piled up in the middle. Apparently, the Imperial forces came for them after they were able to buy time for Jin and Baby Yoda to escape. It makes a ton of sense that the Empire wasn't going to just let their forces be butchered, that they would come for the Mandalorians. Killing a bunch of bounty hunters was a lot easier, apparently, than fending off Imperial troops. You know, remember at the beginning of the last episode, Grief tells us how the Imperial presence has gone up. And Grief has to defend himself because he believes that the Mando believes Grief might be responsible for this. And that's when the Armorer makes her presence known. She comes out to say that it was not his fault. And that once revealed, it was only a matter of time before the Empire came to get them. This is a very cool scene as well. Because, again, we get a little bit more information about the Mandalorians and their situation right now. You know, not everyone was killed. She hopes that some of the Mandalorians were able to escape. But she's staying behind to salvage the remains of their people, of their culture. What's also key about this scene is what's going to be coming up very, very shortly. Our Mandalorian finally gets his sigil, as has been hinted at for a little while now. But he also gets his mission, essentially, for what will be season 2 of the show. And we'll talk about that as the plan plays out. Like I said, I like the scene with the Armorer quite a bit. I love watching her as she takes the armor of the fallen Mandalorians and melts it back down again so they can be reforged and used by another set of warriors. And this is where she wants to see what all the fuss is about, and she sees Baby Yoda. And he tells her that this is the one who helped him with the Mudhorn. She comments how helpless he looks. This is where it's important as well, because this is where Din tells the Armorer about Baby Yoda's abilities. And the Armorer says that she knows of such things.
It's injured, but it is not helpless. Its species can move objects with its mind.
I know of such things. The songs of eons past tell of battles between Mandalore the Great and an order of sorcerers called Jedi that fought with such powers.
It is an enemy?
No. Its kind were enemies, but this individual is not.
What is it?
It is a foundling. By creed. It is in your care.
You wish me to train this thing?
It is too weak. It would die. You have no choice. You must reunite it with its own kind.
Where?
This you must determine.
You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.
I don't know. Again, it seems like a little bit, everyone's underestimating Baby Yoda a little bit here, and his strength and everything like that. But, you know, let's just roll with it, because this is where he's going to get his mission, basically, his new goal, I suppose is a good way to put it. You get to see some of that mythology that we've talked about this history that the Jedi and the Mandalorians have with each other. You get to see that in just a few lines of this episode. You know, Din is told that the Jedi were enemies. So instantly that makes him his enemies. Now he's expected to deliver Baby Yoda to his enemies. It seems very far-fetched to him. It seems very odd. But this is the way, and this is the mission. This is what it's going to be. This is season 2 of The Mandalore coming up. Or is it of The Mandalore? Of The Mandalorian, I should say. Oof. Dodge a bullet on that one. The Armorer also gives them their escape plan. They have to get off planet immediately. So she tells them to take the tunnel down. They're going to find the lava rivers. It's time to get out of there. The Mando says he wants to stay with the Armorer, that he needs to help her, and he needs to heal. But that's not going to happen. The Armorer says you must go because the foundling is in your care. By the creed, until it is of age or reunited with its own kind, you are as its father. Boom. In your face, Mando. Baby Yoda loves that, by the way. Gives him a nice little cuckoo sound. Loves it. Again, this is the way. And here's where he's earned his signet. It's a nice little cool symbol. I can't even really describe it necessarily, but she says, yeah, it's a Mudhorn. As she attaches it to his arm, welds it in place to his armor, that you are a clan of 2. And it's this cool little swoopy, like talent almost thing. I don't know. It's really cool looking. Alright, so our heroes have to take off. But we know the imps are coming. As our heroes are making their way out, before the Imperials can arrive, one more gift for our Mandalorian, for Din, as he leaves. And it's from one of the fallen Mandalorian armors. And it is the Phoenix, the rocket pack. It's interesting the way that she describes talking about the rocket pack. It's almost like it has some kind of life to it, some kind of sentience to it. She tells him that when he is healed, he will begin his drills. Until you know it, it will not listen to your commands. So it's very, very interesting what we may learn more about that rocket pack in season 2 of the show. We do get to play with it a little bit here in the episode, but that's coming up. All right, so IG-11 bought him some more time, but it's time to go. It's time to go. They're going to restock their munitions. The armorer hands IG-11 the rocket pack to hang on to it until Din Djarin is well enough to wear it. All right, the armorer in her forge, kneeling with her hammer and her other tool, the scalpely picky thingy. I don't know what that's called. Looks like she should flip over some stakes with it, though. She's kneeling in front of the forge as the Imperial Stormtroopers come in, and this is when she unleashes a barrage of the fucking epic beatdown on these Stormtrooper chumps. Just smashing the fuck out of them with this fucking hammer. It is so great. As she smashes these Stormtrooper dopes in the face, just bits of plastoid flying through the air. It is epic beatdown city. So good. Loved every second of this fight. Especially when she throws the one Stormtrooper in the forge and he just instantly melts into nothing. Look at that. Smack! So good. Yeah, you don't fuck with the armorer. She's a badass. Alright, our heroes made it down to the river. There's a boat waiting. They have to get the boat going. There's a droid on it. Man, this is so weird too. Once they get the boat going, the droid kind of activates and comes to life. And you see it. The droid, we thought it was an astromech, right? Like an R2-D2 kind of droid. But it springs up. It has its own fucking arms and legs. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's a little unsettling to see an R2 unit with arms and legs standing about 6 feet tall. And, you know, has like a giant metal oar for steering this boat in a lava flat. It's insane. All right, here's where we get to our heroes near the end of this tunnel. They think they're going to make it out to the mud flats themselves and be free and be able to get away. The imps are waiting for him. Din has scanned the area. He sees that they're waiting for him. So they have to come up with a plan. IG-11 has one plan, and it's to kill all the Stormtroopers by self-destructing with his thermal detonator. They set this up in Episode 1, the self-destruct mechanism that allows him not to be captured. And he says that by allowing the Mandalorian and his friends to live, and Baby Yoda to live, he will have served his purpose. And so this is the plan. The Mando's reluctant. He's come around in this droid a little bit. Because IG-11 has proven to be quite useful. And it's a sweet gesture, you know, IG-11, a robot, but is programmed to take care of this Yoda baby, gives him a little stroke of the ear before he jumps into the lava pit and walks his way towards the Imperial Stormtroopers. Again, it's a cool shot. IG-11 is basically melting with every step he takes, but he will get ahead of the Stormtroopers and he will eliminate them, thus saving our heroes. Epic explosions. But Moff Gideon's not done. He's got the TIE Fighter, and he's coming in for airstrikes. The blasters are rendered the blasters are useless again, and Grief Karga's plan is to make Baby Yoda do the magic hand thing, which is pretty hilarious to see Grief Karga attempt to do the magic hand thing with the 3 fingers. Hilarious. Carl Weathers killing it. So, as one would expect a baby to do, Baby Yoda sees Carl Weathers waving at him, and he just waves back. It's awesome. So good. Baby Yoda, hero, role model. But our Mandalorian friend, he's got a couple of tricks up his sleeve because he now has a rocket pack, baby. So he's going to strap that puppy on. And as Moff Gideon comes in for another pass, It's time to fire that sucker up. Moff Gideon rather surprised when the Mandalorian takes flight here. Jesse thinks he's about to kill them all. Mando up in the air. Grappling hook onto the TIE fighter. It's, again, another awesome action piece. We saw a little bit of this from the trailers right before the show debuted. But it's really cool to see the way they do it. You know, the Mandalorian hanging on for dear life to this TIE fighter, attempting to disable it somehow. Eventually, he is able to get explosive charges placed onto the wing of the TIE fighter. And he's able to disable it. And then it crashing back down to Navarro. So that's it for Moff Gideon, right? Yeah, he's down and out. It's over. Oh, look, there he exploded. He's done. Boom. You suck. Mando safely lands with the aid of his new rocket pack. And everything seems good. I thought this was a little strange what happens next, though. Greef, impressed by what he just saw, says that the Mandalorian's guild rates are about to go up. Which I guess is probably pretty darn true. And then we find out that the Cara Dune's going to stay in Navarro. And Greef is staying as well. And it seems like he says the scum and villainy has been washed away. It's very respectable again now. So Greef and Cara are staying, which I thought was interesting. This is, I don't know. I thought for sure they would leave and be like a posse together. But, again, the crux of the story is the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. So when Baby Yoda approaches the Mandalorian's leg and gives him a hug around the leg, I mean, it's pretty cute. But Greef does try to talk to him and talk him into going back to the guild. But Greef knows that he has to go and take care of Baby Yoda first. But Greef offers him a role when he comes back. So everyone says their byes, and they give Baby Yoda a little love on the ears. And it seems like the Mandalorian has much more accepted his responsibility now of taking care of this child. Perhaps, I think we speculated before that maybe he considered the child a family at the very beginning. But I think perhaps he just saw it as an innocent who didn't deserve the fate it had in store for him. So we get the great shot here of the Mandalorian taking off with his new rocket pack. And it's a shot that mirrors the shot we saw of Din being rescued by the Clan Vizsla member. Now Baby Yoda is in that spot where Din was, as they rocket off to safety and head back to the Razor Crest. As we get back to the Razor Crest, we see the Mandalorian. He builds a grave for Kuiil, who died helping to protect Baby Yoda. As we're starting to put together a nice little bow on the end of Season 1 here, as everything's kind of wrapping itself up. They get back they board the Razor Crest. Mandalorian gives Baby Yoda, puts him in the co-pilot seat behind him. And we find that Baby Yoda has a little knick-knack he's eating on. Turns out it's that mythosaur pendant that Din had. And he sees it. And he sees it around Baby Yoda's neck. And he decides to let him keep it. So the Razor Crest takes off. We're leaving Navarro. We're off to Season 2. We pan over Greef and Cara as they head back to the town. And we pan past the downed TIE fighter of Moff Gideon. And then we go into that wreckage of the TIE fighter. And we see the local Jawas around scavenging that TIE fighter, looking for parts and essential components that they can then sell to the people of Navarro. And then a red glowing emanates from the hull of the TIE fighter, and a black blade appears, and it cuts a giant hole in the side of the TIE fighter. And this is when people like me started losing our minds, because we've seen that. And then as Moff Gideon emerges with the full Darksaber engaged, we all collectively lost our effing minds. As Moff Gideon climbs the hulk of his downed TIE fighter, Darksaber fully engaged in his hands. Oh, we know. Shit is going to get real in Season 2. Oh, then that's it, folks. That's the end. That is the conclusion. Season 1 of The Mandalore wraps up 8 chapters of awesome entertainment. I said it before. Yeah, it gets a little... episodes 4, 5, and 6, okay, they're good for the most part. Slows us down a little bit. But, oh boy, did we finish strong with 7 and 8. That is for damn sure. So I love this first season. But what do we have in store for Season 2? Obviously, the Mandalorian now has his charge. He needs to find where Baby Yoda comes from and deliver him to his people. So are we going to get to finally explore more of the myth of the origins of Yoda and his people? Are we going to learn an actual name of his species? These are possibilities for us, right? Like, this is something that could happen depending on how they want to play this out. I mean, there's a lot that could be done here. There's a lot that there's a lot of different directions to go in as far as this goes. I'm curious if Favreau will, if they do decide to explore more into Yoda and his people and his species, his origins, things like that. Will Favreau try to consult? Will Favreau try to consult with George Lucas, who apparently is the only one who knows anything about Yoda and his people? Or does Favreau have his own ideas for the story he wants to tell? I am a little curious. It does seem that despite being the man who created Star Wars, a lot of the people at Disney don't seem to have much interest in his ideas or his story points, as has been famously talked about. He presented Disney with his story notes for episodes 7, 8, and 9, and they basically said thanks, but no thanks, and kind of chucked them in a dumpster. After seeing how 7, 8, and 9 played out, I would be very, very curious to know what ideas George Lucas originally had for episodes 7, 8, and 9 of the Star Wars series. So, Favreau's always struck me as a fellow in his work with Marvel Studios as someone who's very respectful to the source material and to the people who created the material. So I am curious if we find out that he has had a chat with Lucas about Yoda's people, or perhaps we never even get that far. He may have another couple of ideas in mind for what's going to happen in season 2 or season 3 down the road. Now, again, with this last episode of season 1 airing, Favreau was on Twitter today, and he did announce that season 2 of The Mandalorian will begin airing sometime in the fall of 2020. So they are deep in production on it now, and the plan is it'll probably air roughly around the same time as it started last year. So about a year between the seasons. Seems about right. But, the fall will be here soon. It'll be here soon, and we'll be able to watch more episodes of The Mandalorian. Again, interesting to kind of speculate on where we can go next. Obviously we're learning a ton about the Mandalorians at this point. Now we know there's something called the Night of 1,000 Tears. We know a little bit about the Purge. We know who the Imperial officer, at least an Imperial officer who helped oversee the Purge and the Night of 1,000 Tears was, being Moff Gideon. Why does Moff Gideon have the Darksaber? Is he some kind of Mandalorian fanatic? Is he somebody who has an interest in Mandalorian culture, of their artifacts? Or does he fancy himself the leader of the Mandalorians because he is the one in possession of the Darksaber? Does he have Mandalorians working for him because they follow who wields the Darksaber? There's a lot to unpack as things move forward here, and we get to a season 2 of The Mandalorian. And I'm also curious, will there be any sort of time between these seasons, or will it be relatively no time between season 1 and season 2? I'm assuming that Disney and Favreau and everybody is not eager to lose the cuteness of Baby Yoda by turning him into a teenager anytime soon. So my assumption is Baby Yoda's going to stay Baby Yoda for quite a while. Don't look forward to any crazy time jumps here or anything like that. Yeah, there's just a lot of great answers, a lot of more mysteries to unpack as well. What role will Clan Vizsla play going forward? Will they play a role? Now, it never came back up in this season, but apparently that one heavily armored Mandalorian was a member of Clan Vizsla, the one who got into the knife fight with our Mandalorian friend Din in chapter 3. I'm assuming that Vizsla would be very interested in knowing that Moff Gideon has the Darksaber with him. But again, we're speculating right now. Oh man, this was an exciting episode. This was an exciting series, and I can't wait to talk more about it, to get into more of the mythology, as they seem to be doing a wonderful job of incorporating it. What we can do in the meantime, what I'll be doing in the meantime as I get mentally prepared for more episodes of The Mandalorian, is I'm going to be revisiting the episodes involving the Clone Wars. I'll be rewatching episodes of Rebels. I may just watch the entire series. It's probably just easier to watch them all because those are both great shows, and 30 minutes apiece. You can fly right through them. So if you guys want to get more prepared for things that are coming up, kind of get that deeper appreciation for some of the cool things that are happening, watch those shows. I think all of it. Obviously we're all watching The Mandalorian, so we all have Disney Plus, which means we all have access to the Clone Wars, and we all have access to Star Wars Rebels right now. So I say we take advantage of it. Let's revisit. Let's get nerdy. Let's up our Mandalorian heritage game. We know a lot, but we can know a lot more. And let's see what they have in store for us. I think there's gonna be more twists, more turns, more surprises. I think knowing that the Mandalorian has more of a the Mandalorian has his mission, and I think it's a mission that will allow for more story-driven things to happen and to occur. I kind of think there's definitely room to improve on some of the storytelling aspects of the season of the series. There was a little fat in the middle. 4, 5, and 6, a little. But overall, this series has been a huge success, huge triumph. I'd love to see Favreau do more Star Wars stuff, but even if he doesn't want to, if he just wants to stay on The Mandalorian, I'm okay with that too. The series has been a real blast. It's been a lot of fun. They've been able to incorporate so much of the mythology that I appreciate, and even get some nods to some of the older mythology, some of the older canon that we've talked about on the show previously. So I'm really excited. I hope you guys have enjoyed this as much as I have, because this show has been a hoot. It's been a real treat, and I have loved talking about it with you guys. So that's it. I mean, we did two series breakdowns this fall. We broke down the Watchmen episodes. Now we've broken down every episode of The Mandalorian, and it's been a real blast. I've had a great time doing it. It's been a lot of fun.
You can't self-destruct. Your base command is to watch the child. That supersedes your manufacturer's protocol, right? Right?
This is correct.
Good. Now grab a blaster and help us shoot our way out.
Victory through combat is impossible. We will be captured. The child will be lost. Sadly, there is no scenario where the child is saved in which I survive.
Listen, you're not going anywhere. We need you. Let's just come up with
Please tell me the child will be safe in your care. If you do so, I can default to my secondary command.
But you'll be destroyed.
And you will live, and I will have served my purpose.
Hey, all right, welcome back to the present. I hope you enjoyed my initial review from, what was that? Gosh, December 27th, I think, was when Chapter 8 first debuted on Disney+. It was a fun look back. We ended it with that sound clip from IG-11 right before his heroic and noble sacrifice to save Baby Yoda, the child, Cara Dune, Grief Karga, and Din Djarin, the mighty Mandalorian himself. A bold, brave sacrifice. Kuiil dying in the line of duty to protect the child, also in Chapter 7. So the friends we made throughout the course of this season, some of them had to pay and make the ultimate sacrifice to save the child. And that shows the strength of these characters, and their resolve to do the right thing, which is at the heart of the Star Wars story. It's about characters making the morally right decision to do the right thing at the right time, all the time. And we complete our arc for the Mandalorian character. He's now been charged by the Armorer. He knows that he is now. He's known that he's the protector of that child, but now it is his duty. It is part of the creed that he must follow, and he has sworn to the creed. And now the Armorer has charged him, and it's formal now. It's kind of like binding that the child is a foundling, and Din Djarin is in its care, and he is like a father unto it now. And so that's how we transition. That's how Din's character grows from the first episode to Chapter 8 now. He struggled against the responsibility of taking care of the child, but he always knew it was the right thing to do. It just took a little bit for him to get there to realize the stakes, and the stakes are high. The Imperials and Moff Gideon in particular are not going to stop. Always will be looking for the child, little Baby Yoda as we call him in the world just calls him Baby Yoda now. It's not even a thing. So again, that's a really wonderful transformation for the character, for this his development as a person, as a character on the show. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, the trailers for season 2 have indicated that he is fully embracing that role, as a child goes with him everywhere, even to the most dangerous hives of scum and villainy. And that's refreshing, because that was one thing that I kind of always I always bumped up against in season 1, was sort of his reluctance to embrace the child, and would just stuff him in cupboards and things like that. And this is really nice change of pace. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they play this out further in season 2. Other things I wanted to talk about too. Again, we talked about it, how when the armor's referring to Yoda's people, to Yoda's kind. I say Yoda, I mean baby Yoda's. I mean the child's kind, the child's species, its people. Clearly, I think it's very fair. I think it's a very safe bet that she is referring to the Jedi, because, listen, as the armor illustrated, as she talked about in the Songs of Eons Past, the Mandalorians and the Jedi have had conflict with each other for a long time. We played that clip from Star Wars Rebels that illustrates that. It just makes sense that moving forward, that conflict is talked about more and more well defined throughout this series, because these are two important species, or two important clans, I suppose, if you want to, if you want to compare the Jedis and the Mandalorians to each other. They have this wonderful sense of belief, but they also constantly find themselves in conflict with one another. And we talked about how Tar Vizsla might have been some kind of idea of Mandalorians of the past and Jedi of the past to kind of bridge their differences. But perhaps Baby Yoda and the role that Din Djarin will play in protecting that child and bringing that child back to the Jedi potentially will I guess we'll wait and see. I don't want to speculate too much. I want to tell you guys real quick. We have a big speculation-based episode coming up where we're going to talk about all the things that could happen in season 2, and that's going to be our the second big episode of this week. And I want you guys and gals, and theys and thems, and everybody get ready. That's all that matters. Get ready, because we're going to start talking about stuff. It's time to look forward. We've looked back on season 1. It's time to look forward to season 2, because season 2 is going to be here so darn soon. It's 11 days out. It's 11 days until we get to watch the new season. That's really, really exciting stuff. So before we kind of close out this final review of season 1, a couple things I did want to mention real quick. We didn't give enough credit to Ludwig Göransson and his scoring for season 1. Ludwig's score is one of those things where it was instantly captivating. He hit all the right notes in all the scenes. That rings true even especially in this episode. I love the kind of music that plays underneath when the armorer is fighting the stormtroopers in the foraging room. Just if you listen back to it, rewatch it, and kind of hear that music that plays underneath, and it's so striking and powerful. And it's striking because she's striking those stormtroopers across their stupid faces, and it's awesome. So I love that. So good, so good. Ludwig did a killer job on season 1 of the show, and I'm assuming he's going to do a killer job on season 2 of it. We didn't talk about where we left Greef and Karga. I'm sorry, Greef and Karga. Greef, Karga, and Cara Dune. Yes, Cara is staying on Navarro with Greef. It sounds like she's going to take on the role of his sort of enforcer. She seems to have some concerns about the tracker that's on her, the chit that is, that lures the bounty hunters to come after her. But I guess Greef's going to deal with that, and we will see where we find them in season 2, because we know we're going to meet up with them again at some point in season 2. Maybe early on, maybe down the road. We're not quite sure just yet how it's going to play out, but it's something exciting to look forward to. I should also mention, because as I've been saying throughout these revisited episodes, since the quarantine, since the pandemic struck, and we've all been spending more time at home, The Mandalorian has been a show that I have revisited multiple times because it's just so easy to watch. It's so digestible every time. But there's layers and there's nuance to it, and it's so wonderful to re-explore it, even though you know it. But to re-explore it and to kind of see that nuance in every little episode and in some of the performances is so nice and so wonderful. And again, we talk a lot about the love we have for the child, for Baby Yoda on the series, and that's never going to change. But I have to confess that when I rewatched this episode in particular, the scene with the Flame Trooper, coming into the bar, Din is knocked out from the explosion. Well, not knocked out, but incapacitated, unable to defend himself or anybody in the room. Kara and Grief and IG-11 all occupied with trying to save Din and make their escape. The Flame Trooper enters that room, and the way it's shot from behind the child, from behind Baby Yoda, the way the flame explodes towards him, towards the other characters, and the music kind of just it's just real subtle. It's real beneath the surface, but everything else quiets down real low, and we just see the expression on the child's face as he raises his hands to use the Force to save these people who are risking everything to save him. And it makes me cry. It makes me cry. I can't help it. You know, someone's gonna message me and say that you cried at a puppet, and I'm gonna say, you're goddamn right I did. Because it's a beautiful moment and a beautiful show full of beautiful moments. And again, it's quintessential Star Wars. Quintessential Star Wars. That these characters rise up to do the right thing, to save their friends, to have each other's backs. And that goes for the child as well. And it's one of the reasons why I love Star Wars so much. The Favreau and Dave Filoni and his team of writers and directors, well, I guess mostly just directors, they all did such a wonderful job on this first season. And they've had praise heaped on them since the beginning. But I'm going to heap a little bit more as we head into season 2, because it's just a beautiful, beautiful scene and a beautiful, beautiful moment. And if you haven't had a chance to rewatch the series, which I'm sure you have, rewatch it again. Especially this closing out episode to kind of get you fired up for season 2, because that is just really well done. And Taika Waititi directed this episode. I know we talked about that earlier, but that man has got some serious directing chops about him. So well done, Mr. Taika Waititi. I respect the hell out of you, just like everyone else in the world does. All right, so one more thing we have to get into real quick before we wrap it up. I have been misidentifying the name of this episode, and I need to apologize for that immediately. I'm sure everyone caught it when I first did it in the opening of the show. I think it's just because I like saying The Reckoning. But the title of this chapter is Redemption, and we needed to talk about that because that's a very important theme for not only this episode of the show, but for the season overall. Because if you remember back to chapter 3, the big shootout episode where it's titled The Sin. So that is the episode in which the Mandalorian turns over Baby Yoda to the Imperials, to the client, the Werner Herzog character, who goes unnamed throughout the series. And that is the sin that gets him in trouble. Kicked out of the Bounty Hunters Guild, put on the run. And again, morally speaking, the sin is he turned that child over to the Imperials, knowing bad things were in store for that child. And now, by the end of the season, here in chapter 8, he comes full circle and achieves redemption, because not only has he liberated the child, but he is now officially charged with the protection of the child moving forward and reuniting him with his people. So a really important development, and something that needed to be elaborated on a little bit further before we really wrap things up. Again, I apologize for misidentifying the episode. I have no excuse. That was just a complete and total brain fart. But this is chapter 8, Redemption, and again, a key element in the development of Din Djarin. He commits the sin in chapter 3, and now he gets the redemption for those actions and everything that's happened since then. Really, really great stuff. You know, it's not like super complicated stuff, but like I said, this is a show with it's got surprising depth and surprising nuance to it, and it's just stuff like that. It's if you pay attention to the show, you get rewarded across the board for thematic elements that maybe the casual viewer, maybe someone not paying that much attention, and it kind of just goes right over their heads. But these are the things that people who listen to podcasts like this get rewarded for. So an important element to Din's character moving forward into Season 2. He's been redeemed for his sin. Now it's time to take care of the child, find some Jedi, and kick some ass. Alright, with that, this has been the 10th episode of MandoVision as we break down Chapter 8 of Season 1 of The Mandalorian, The Reckoning. So here's where I need you guys, this is where I need everyone's help. Make sure that you are supporting this podcast in the best way you can, that you are subscribed to the show, you're downloading the show, you're liking the show, you're sharing the show with all your friends. Make sure you can follow us on all those major podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, all of those big ones. If you need us somewhere else, we can be somewhere else. Just let me know. Hit me up. And the best way to hit me up, that's on social media. You can follow us at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. And like those photos and like I said, share us. There's a lot of Star Wars podcasts. There's a lot of Star Wars Instagram and Twitter feeds. But we're doing something pretty fun over here, and I would love this. I'd love the additional support from everyone who's taking the time to listen and download to the show. I hope you're having as much fun listening to it as I am making it. It means the world to me that you're taking the time to check us out in what we're doing here. So with that being said, gosh, I guess we have to close it out because, I mean, that's it. Oh, you know what? One other thing. Let me do one other thing. Since I'm encouraging you to go on to the social media to follow us. Again, at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. I already told you, we're coming up with the what we're going to be looking forward to in Season 2. Be able to be a lot of speculation. It'll be based on a lot of the rumors and the whispers that are in the weeds about what's coming up on Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Hit me up on Twitter, on Instagram, and let's talk about what you think's coming up, and we'll get into it on the podcast, and we can kind of dive into some of these topics. So again, engagement on the social medias is something that gets me really excited. Again, Twitter and Instagram. Hit me up with what you think is in store for Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Again, 11 days out. But we're going to get into it because it's time to get really, 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 really excited. I can't wait. It's going to be a fun, gosh, what is it, 8 or 9 episodes? I don't think they're doing 10. I think it's 8 episodes again. But boy, oh boy, can't wait. And the word is out. Favreau's saying that it looks like Season 3 is going to film soon. They're going to start filming before 2020 is over. So this is great news. Hopefully they have the proper precautions in place so that everyone is safe and you know, still a pandemic going on, but hopefully we can film some new episodes of The Mandalorian in a safe environment so that we can keep getting our fix of The Mandalorian, of Baby Yoda, of Cara Dune, learn more about Moff Gideon, all this stuff. We want all of it. So if they can do that safely, more power to them. Let's keep it going. And let's speculate and see how big and bad Season 2 can get, because I think there's great things ahead in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. All right, I've blabbered on enough. So hit me up on the social medias. Let's talk about what we're looking forward to the most in Season 2. We close out MandoVision this week in the only way we can close out MandoVision. This is the way.
You expect me to search the galaxy for the home of this creature and deliver it to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.